sent a request. All right, Devin, what is up, my man?
Hey, what's up?
What? You hear me and see me and everything? Everything is all well?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can. All right, sick, awesome. First of all, thank you very much for
Hold
taking the
on.
time today. You got a little bit of a packed bill. I think you have something going on here right after this one, even too. You're gonna be playing some guitar.
Sorry, I had to turn off my Wi-Fi. I'm in like the weird spot of my house. I can hear you now.
Oh, okay, got it. No, I was just mentioning you've got something going right after this as well, right? Are you doing like some sort of like a guitar session or something?
Just kind of have a chat with Rigs of Death Metal. Um,
Sick.
yeah. So at the end of the tour, we all of us got COVID, and it was just me and our tour manager that had positive tests first. Everybody else was negative at that time. So
Oh, I
we
thought it
had
was just Tom. Oh shit, everybody
nah, it
got it?
was all of us got it.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, eventually it was me and our tour manager, and then the next day Tom, and then the next day Griffin and Vincent and Chris, our front of house engineer.
Oh
Um,
God, that sucks.
so yeah, it was mainly annoying. Like all of us are vaccinated. We all have like our booster shots. So none of us had severe. Like we just kind of felt tired.
Mm.
Most of it, I ended up staying in a hotel for 10 days with our tour manager and missed Christmas, all that stuff. But
Oh,
um, like we had to leave. We were just like, since it was just us that got sick first, we were like, we got to get the fuck out of here. And
no.
so all of my gear is like in New York. So
Oh shit. Okay.
yeah, so Balaguer, who like I work for them, and I'm an artist on for their guitars. They're
Mm.
sending me like a loaner that's FedEx, of course, is taking their time. It says maybe today it might show up, and it's not going to. I can see where
Right.
it's at, and I'm like, there's no way it's getting here.
Oh,
Stop
dude.
lying to me.
Right. I've had packages recently, like literally a couple of movies that have come, and it's been, where all of a sudden it says that, it's in your city, it's on the way, and then all of a sudden I get
Yeah,
out of work and I look and it says it's back in Connecticut. I'm like, how the fuck did that even happen?
right.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that's. I mean, it's good that that you guys, it wasn't anything severe, by any means, as far as with testing positive. I was at the show in Detroit when you guys were playing at Cubs and Waves, and I was mentioning to Tom and Kevin, because I've had them on the show, and I was like, man, you guys did great, and I wanted to come holler at you and whatnot, but it's kind of weird times, especially with
yeah,
everything right now, and I don't want it to be like an awkward situation where making people feel like, oh yeah, let's hang out, and it's like, fuck me,
yeah. And
there's a
that's the
lot of
thing.
shit going on right now.
Like we were all for the most part like, and everybody there were times where you got your friend out, like you're gonna hang out with them, but for the most part, like I just hung out in like the green room most days because I'm like, and it sucks because I'm like I haven't done this in almost 2 years at this point. I want to go and like hang out and chat with people, but at the same time,
Totally,
like
you got to be
you know,
cautious.
we found out I think it was the Cleveland show was where we likely got exposed.
Mm.
Because there were, I guess, from what we've heard, there were some people that were knowingly positive that just came to the show anyways, and so it's like, thank you.
Whoa, wow, yeah.
Yeah, but I
That's
mean,
that.
what are you
It's a
gonna do?
tricky part of having shows too. I mean, like I guess like playing shows still. It's like you have your masks on and everything, and you try your hardest. But then when you hear shit like that, it's like you're the reason why the shit is the way it is right now. Like,
Yeah,
sit the
and
fuck
it's
home.
but that's how it is with rules for like anytime there's show because you see signs that say like no stage diving, no moshing, like nobody listens to that. Like you can't
Yeah,
you put rules in, people are like, okay, I don't care.
yeah, right,
Like
right.
you're always gonna have a
Maybe.
few people, whatever.
Yeah. Oh shit. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, and I got to say, I'm glad that you guys did end up making it, to Detroit, because that was honestly
That was
top,
a good show.
shows I've ever seen was you guys playing at Comes and Waves. And anybody that's in the chat right now, if you guys got to see that tour, it was insane. I normally like to get a little wild and partake in the moshing and different things, and I had to sit back and watch just because it was such a fucking cool experience and something that I never really thought that I'd be able to see. Loving the album and it being like a huge part, I feel like, of Acacia Strain's like catalog.
Yeah,
Really
it
really
was a lot of
cool.
fun.
So
It was a lot of fun to play. We were stressed out about it because it's like for that, like we'd move to using in-ears and playing to a click, which was something for a long time. Like we were kind of, I wouldn't say opposed to doing, but I think it was like we'd just been doing it a certain way for so long. Like, you know, Vincent, Kevin, myself, Griffin, all being like kind of older at this point. We played shows forever, starting off like playing in a VFW hall with just guitar cabs and stuff. There's no monitors at all.
Mm-hmm.
So even when we have like monitor, like monitor on the front of the stage, and like, oh, I can hear the kick drum. Cool. Like I'm like, I don't need all that shit. And Kevin's a tight drummer, but then playing It Comes in Waves, it's like you can't just like kind of guess because there's so much stuff that has to come in like very precisely. So we're like, okay,
Sure.
let's try this out. And now I'm like, how the hell did we go so long without doing this? Because now we play extremely tight. I can hear everything that's going on. I can hear my vocals when I'm doing backups because usually I can't hear those at all, and I hurt myself because I'll like push way too hard.
Oh, okay. Right.
And there was one show where we were having like ear issues, which is I'll take one show over like several. And I pulled one out just so I could hear all the stuff on stage, and it was so unnecessarily loud. I was like, what the hell? Like, how did I do that every night? Because like everything in the ears, you're isolated, and the volume's so much lower than like having all this loud shit behind you. And I'm like,
Right.
how am I not deaf?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a lucky part as far as like playing drums versus guitar or singing, in a band where it's like you can be behind a little bit of some of that stuff.
Yeah.
But being out in front like that, and especially some of the bands that do it night after night, or like you're saying, over years and not having anything in, it's like that's pretty pummeling, man.
I always told myself, like, we have 212s on top of our 412s, like our cabinets.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
We usually like the 212s. We never liked how they sounded, so we usually just don't even plug them in. And my whole idea is like, oh well, the sound's kind of underneath it, so it's not like it's hitting you right in the ear. I'm like, no, that was a stupid thing I was saying. It's still loud.
Oh gosh, that's awesome. All right, so I mean, dialing it back a little bit here, I wanted to first touch on, as far as growing up in a musical home and having, like heavier music, introduced even at a young age, and your dad playing in a band as well. Tell us about buying your first tape, album, or CD with your own money. How did that come about, and where did you grab it?
So like my dad, unfortunately, like just him and my mom didn't make it. Didn't last that long together, so he wasn't much of my life growing up. But my mom still listened to a ton of music, so I was growing up and I was hearing, rock radio. You'd hear like Metallica and all this stuff, and I know she told stories like when I was older, like, oh yeah, I was 8 months pregnant, we went and saw Iron Maiden, and she's like, I went and saw Metallica with Ozzy in '86, and Cliff Burton was still playing bass. I'm like, that's sick. But for my own stuff, like, I kind of got into it. Like, I listened to that stuff on the radio. Like, I remember specifically, I want to say like '96. I was in like third grade, and that's when I started to like venture out on my own. Like, I liked stuff I'd hear on the radio, which was Smashing Pumpkins, Load era Metallica, and things like that. Which you're in third grade, like you have no like this is not the good stuff. You're just like,
yeah, right.
like, wow, this is cool. I like
this is
it.
cool.
So I still like that record because that was stuff I heard. But as far as buying my own first thing with my own money, I remember buying. I used to be big on like movie soundtracks because they'd have just a bunch of songs. There'd be a couple songs from a band I knew I liked, and then just other stuff. I bought the Spawn soundtrack on.
Oh, dude, so sick.
Which has like I look back and every song was a collaboration between like two artists. But I know there was like there's like a Slayer song on there. There's some cool stuff. But yeah. Then from there I think it was buying my own stuff was probably Metallica. It was probably like Ride the Lightning or Master of Puppets.
Okay.
I probably bought Master of Puppets like 6 times because I would play it so much. I would lose it somewhere. But then also I used to do a thing where I would, like I'm in middle school. My grandma was like, all right, you want to get your mom something for her birthday? And I'm like, yeah, I think she really wants this Papa Roach record. And just stuff I'm in like 7th grade, and I'm like, what do I want to listen to in the car? Here, put this on. Stuff that I'm like, she would tolerate it,
Oh
but
my
really, I'm just like,
god.
this is better than whatever the hell she's listening to.
Oh, that is funny. Oh my God. I mean, what did she did she end up, was it like a kind gesture like, "Oh, Devin, this is great. Thank you," or was she like,
Yeah,
"What
well,
is
because
this?"
it was stuff like because she listened, like I said, like the rock radio stations, and I still
Oh my
remember
God.
listening back in the day. There was some guy who came on. The guy like they're like, "Oh, what do you want to listen to?" And he's like, "I got two words for you: disturbed." And like we made fun of that for years. Um, but I mean, I think
Oh my
really
God.
probably sixth, maybe seventh grade. Like I was only into like the kind of new metal stuff for a little while. Um, and like, I'm not one of these people who's like that shit sucks. It's just it like I because I'd already been exposed to bands like Slayer and like older
Oh,
Metallica and stuff. So it didn't. It's great for people when it was like that was their entry into that stuff. But I was like the novelty wore off pretty quick for me.
okay. Okay.
But it was still
So
like it was
no, go
better
ahead.
than like it was better than listening. You know, my mom would put on like the pop station or something, and so I was like, well, here, this guy's at least this has guitars and it sounds cool.
Yeah, totally, totally. Okay, yeah, I can appreciate that. With you mentioning the Spawn soundtrack, is there something that comes to mind as far as like having something like that, or like something like Freddy versus Jason, or some of the cooler even like movie soundtracks that had different bands on it? Do you remember anything as far as introducing you to a band that you'd never heard before, and something that you ended up picking up in
Um,
an interest in?
yeah, I remember watching the Blair Witch Project 2, Book of Shadows, I think was what. Which the movie's
Oh yeah,
terrible.
okay.
Movie sucks.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I'll actually a little tangent. I didn't watch Blair Witch Project when I was younger, and I watched it a couple years ago. Does not hold up.
Oh, you
Does
don't like it, really?
Well, I didn't. I think if I saw it like back in like '99 or whenever it came out, and like had the whole like, wow, this is real. I'd be like,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay,
but watching
okay.
it like a few years later, I'm like, this is I appreciate it for what it is, being like the first like found footage, like
Uh-huh.
major found footage movie. Doesn't hold up.
Okay. Honestly, I haven't seen it since it came out
Yeah,
originally, so I like I
watch it and you'll be like, oh, how did I like this? But anyways,
nice. Okay.
Blair Witch Two is like just a normal movie,
Mhm.
and I'm pretty sure that's the movie it was, but it's got Typo Negative in it. Like in one of the opening scenes, they're playing
Oh, dang.
Summer Girl,
Oh,
the Summer
shit.
Breeze
Okay.
cover,
Yeah.
and I didn't like seek them out and be like, who is this? But I remember hearing it and be like, that's kind of cool. And then I just never got. I didn't get into them for years.
Mhm.
I saw them play with Cradle of Filth, which I still didn't listen to them, and I was like, this band sucks. Like I was like 13 or 14. I'm like, why does this guy sound like Elvis? And then years later, I'm like,
What did I do?
why? Now they're one of my favorite bands. But and
Yeah,
that's what I tell
totally.
everybody. Like, I don't think anybody hears Typo Negative for the first time and goes, wow, I love this. They're like, what the hell is this? And then
Yeah.
it grows on you, and then there's a point where you click and you get it, and you're like, oh, okay,
Yeah, totally. I always enjoyed Black Number One. That was the
yeah,
first song that I know that I listened to. My brothers introduced me to it, and I thought it was cool because it was creepy. It kind of sounds like this
yeah.
vampiric, like
I remember seeing being.
glooping
I think
sound.
I was in high school when it clicked, and it was that video. They were playing that video on like VH1 Classic, and
Oh, okay.
I was like, why is he playing like a stand up bass and there's an acoustic guitar? I'm like, this is stupid. And I was like, wait, oh, it's like they're trying to be funny. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
it's funny. It's very tongue in cheek, and then you get it, and you're like, oh, I'm an idiot.
Okay. Is there a record that comes to mind as far as possibly going through like a local shop or something? I've heard you mention Media Play before, which that wasn't something I'd heard in some years. A Midwest, certainly absolutely rad spot that I loved. Something that comes to mind as far as choosing an album off of cover art, maybe even an artist that you weren't familiar with.
Yeah, so at the time when I was going to Media Play a lot, that was more when I was like really just getting into it, and I would just buy. I would go there for new releases, or oh, I'm gonna get this Metallica record. But there
Okay.
was a place called CD Warehouse that has since turned into a company called Buybacks, and
Hmm.
that used to be like I was close enough that I could skateboard over there, and I would always
Okay.
just be looking through all the the rows and rows of CDs, And I remember buying a Mortician record
Oh
based on the
shit.
artwork. I remember buying a Deicide record. I don't remember which one. It's the one that has Bible Basher on it, and
Oh,
it's just
okay.
got like I think it's got like the flaming 666 logo on the cover. I'm like, that's sick. Um, but and I listened to it. And I'm like, I don't like this that much. But one specifically, I remember seeing the cover art for Seasons in the Abyss and buying that. That was the first Slayer record I bought specifically because of the
Sick.
artwork, and that's my favorite Slayer record.
Damn.
Um,
Yeah, that's awesome. What was
but
that? So you weren't familiar with the band yet? That was something that you would that was your
I'd
first record
heard,
you got from them?
yeah, I'd heard songs, but I hadn't specifically gone out and been like, oh, I have to get Rain and Blood. That's the record. It was just like
Hmm.
I was like, oh, there's Slayer, and I'm like that just based on looking at the few CDs they had, because I'm in middle school. I can't like just buy everything they have, so
Yeah.
it's like usually I was bringing in like video games and other stuff, whatever I could trade in to buy like metal CDs, and so I was like, I'm gonna get this one because it looks cool. Because there's like this head vomiting up like his body parts into an open grave. I'm like, that's cool. And
Right. Right.
so that's the one that won. As I
Okay.
like album artwork is really important, I think, because it's if for people that like your stuff, it's cool to have something that you want to like show off and go, like, this looks cool.
Hmm.
And if somebody doesn't know your music, they might see that and be like, oh, that looks cool. Let me check that out. Or
Total draw.
yeah, or just it sticks in their head and they see it later and like, oh yeah, let me get
Hmm.
that. Like that's why for Acacia Strain for the longest time, like here's the stuff that Justin Angry Blue did that was like
Yep.
there's like the Bird records, and then we went with Kalen Stokerman's for Slow Decay,
Slow decay.
just awesome.
So insane. Yeah, it's cool too that he did. And something I was always, kind of looking out for as far as for like Coma Witch or Grey Bloom, especially is, with Caleb doing, the extended like full print of it. I never got my hands on one of them, but I'm still like watching. And I've messaged him a few times. I'm like, man, next time that shit comes around, then all of a sudden something happens, and I'm like, fuck, I missed it.
Right.
But yeah, that's so sick, and I certainly agree. I mean, it was kind of a gamble too, if you're going to a record shop or you're going to a music shop and choosing something just off of the cover art, because sometimes you're like, man.
Oh
But
yeah,
I
I've been
mean,
burned a few times where you're like, what the hell is this?
yeah. Was there times where you'd have that you would make like mix CDs or anything like that as far as some of your
Oh
interests, or
yeah,
maybe some albums that kind of sucked and you just wanted a couple of songs off it?
yeah, that would happen for sure. Like there was a weird period, I think, in like the mid to late '90s, especially with like the more commercial rock bands, where
Hmm.
studios would give them this all this money to do the single, and they'd have like their singles from the record that were like produced by so and so, and then the rest was recorded somewhere else, and you're like, why would they do that? But you'd listen. Like I remember, I think it was Marcy Playground that had that
Yeah.
Sex and Candy song,
Yeah. Yeah.
which like was like very polished, like highly like the production on it's good. It's a good song, and
Mhm.
I had that CD, and the rest of it sounds like nothing like it. Like even production wise, you're like, this doesn't sound like the same band. And
Yeah.
there were a lot of that's just one example, but that happened a lot. So there used to be a lot more of just like, all right, let me pull the hits
Hmm.
because the B sides suck. But I think with what was cool with metal was that they were trying to write every song to be like they weren't trying to say like this. All right, here's our hit song. It's just like here's the next song,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you still get those filler tracks, but there were definitely what was cool with metal is like everybody I knew we could like the same band, but every one of us would have different favorite songs from them. It wasn't like, oh yeah, here's the one hit that everybody loves. So
Right. Right.
there was definitely a lot of mixed CDs, and then you get
Yeah.
better at learning like, which helps you later on in life when you're making your own music, where you're like, song order is very important and how they flow into each other because
Yeah.
you make a mix CD with like a bad order and you're like, What am I doing?
This is chaotic.
Just jarring. You're like,
Yeah, I was for some reason this brings me back to thinking of like LimeWire, and you'd go and you'd find that new song that say Slipknot featuring Mudvayne and Korn
yeah,
and System of a Down. Then you listen to it, it's like Spine Shank. It's like, what is this? Nobody
yeah. And then
asked for this.
then your computer catches on fire.
Yeah, yeah. Oh God, what a terrible time. And honestly, I appreciate those albums because I feel like that's what pushed me into hardcore was, finding, I guess maybe even like the earlier Hatebreed albums or, like some of the earlier stuff that I'd clinged on to where I was like, whoa, this is heavy music that like it doesn't seem like they're just focusing on one or two songs,
Yeah,
to be impressive. They're writing a whole album. So
yeah. And that's
I
like,
appreciate some of those shitty albums.
oh, for sure. Because that's the thing is like, when we were younger, there it wasn't as accessible. I'm jealous of kids today that are like, 16 years old and they're like they can get online and find anything they want. And somebody would be like, "Oh, this is the band that started this."
Yeah.
Back then, like that's so cool that you can just
Hmm.
get into it and be like, "Wow, I really like this." Whereas, back then you had to kind of hack your way through the weeds of like some like tolerable but kind of shitty music that wasn't really your thing to get to other stuff where you're like, "Oh, wow,
Right.
this is
Right.
it." Like, nobody just like this like no kid in fifth grade is like, yeah, I listen to Death.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. Right. There was certainly albums, where it's like people would ask, like, how do you like this album so much? And it's like, well, I had $10 and I had 20 CDs that I had to trade in to try
yeah,
and pick this one that I just picked off the cover art that ended up sucking ass, but I have to make myself like it because I've spent all my
yeah,
money on
yeah. No,
it.
because yeah, now a record comes out, a mountain of records come out every Friday, and I can listen to whatever I want on Spotify. Back then, it was like I remember pre-order, like I used to pre-order CDs. I pre-ordered like
Mhm.
CKY's Infiltrate, Destroy, Rebuild.
Oh, yeah.
Went and picked it up September 24th, 2001. Still remember when it came out.
It's
Skipped
awesome.
school that day and listened to it on repeat. It's 30 minutes long. I listened to it all day, just like this record has riffs.
Yeah, that rules. And CKY was part of that whole like time too. I feel like where it was like real crossover into skateboarding and kind of
Yeah, and
finding
that's
punk and different bands too with
that's how I got into it
the
because I was
culture.
like, there was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and I was like, I want to skateboard for real, and I
Yeah.
was never very good at it, but it
Nope.
was fun. That's all that mattered. I had fun. But
Yeah.
then you're getting skate videos and you hear these bands in there, and CKY like the videos they'd have like, you'd have Malevolent Creation and like Atrocity, all kind like there's like cool like death metal bands that weren't like the top tier, wasn't like Cannibal Corpse.
Hmm.
So you hear this stuff and you're like, oh, what is that? And then you listen to more, and then all of a sudden you have like new bands you like,
Yeah.
and then that just
Totally.
opens the door more. You're like, oh, well, I like this band, and you look in the thank yous of a CD, and you're like, okay, well, they listen. I've seen this band listed in a couple liner notes of the CD, so I'm gonna check them out,
Yep. Yep.
and that's how the doors get opened back then.
Yeah, I mean that was huge for a long time with for whatever reason Eulogy Records comes to mind as far as even with like a label you have like
Yeah,
a band like the Warriors and it's like oh shit and then they thank all these different eulogy bands and it's like whoa
right.
what is
And
Know the Score and
you see eulogy on something, and you're like, okay, let me check that
yeah
out.
check
Now
that
it's
out yeah.
now you've got like Maggot Stomp, and you're like, okay, well, I like this band, so this is gonna be some other like just disgusting death metal shit that I'm gonna check out.
yeah I mean that the recent tour you guys did I had never heard 200 Stab Wounds. I've seen the
Oh,
logo
they're
all over
great.
the place and I saw them and I messaged them like immediate after. I'm like you guys are awesome, like this is sick.
Yeah,
I'm kind of bummed out that I
it's
missed
great
out but
because there's I would call myself a death metal head. Like that's what really drew me in. Like there's other stuff I liked, but that was what like really like locked me in early on.
mm,
And then in the like late 2000s, early 2010s, like every band doing it, like it was just let's be as technical as possible. And some of it was cool, but a lot of it was like, dude, you're just doing guitar exercises.
too much. Yeah.
It's like I can't listen to more than 3 songs before I'm like just fully exhausted from listening to it. I'm like, I'm like, I get it. You guys are really good. I don't want to listen to it. It's whatever. And now there's bands that are just like, they're just like, oh no, who gives a shit? We like
Hmm.
Mortician. We like just play something that's heavy. and but
Yeah,
without it being
totally.
like, it's not. It's just death metal. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's bands that are now doing like 200 Stab Wounds. They have some of that like, fuck it, it's just death metal. But then they also have some parts where they show off like, yes, we do have skill, and I
Yeah,
think
right.
that's really cool. It's not just like not just showing off.
Yeah, they. I mean, yeah, it's so. I guess it kind of made me think of Cannibal Corpse, even in the sense of like, the drums aren't, the over the top, absolute
Yeah,
technical. Always has to be crazy fills. Da da da. All
yeah, because
this.
that's
That
like
was
what
something that I've
Cannibal
always
Corpse. What?
appreciated with about them.
Yeah, was it Paul from? I think that's his name, the drummer of Cannibal
Yeah.
Corpse.
Yeah.
Like he he's by no means the best drummer in the world, but he's the best drummer for Cannibal Corpse.
Totally.
And it's
Yeah.
like if they had some super technical drummer who's just flying over top of everything, like
Mm.
wouldn't be the same, and it wouldn't have the same impact.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I've always appreciated too that it always sounds analog. It doesn't sound like anything has been overproduced or they've replaced hits or anything like that. You can kind of tell if there's a part where maybe the bell was off a little bit or like that.
Yeah,
I love that. That's for sure sick. So as far as with your transition into playing guitar, and you've kind of gotten into the story where one I think Christmas you had mentioned asking for a K7 and it ended up
yeah,
being an acoustic.
yeah. And I think
How
that
did
was
it?
that was I was in middle school. That was like
Okay.
that era where I was still like into some of the new metal stuff, but I'm like, wow, that guitar is really. I had like the heavy metal magazines, and you'd see ads for like guitars, and those looked really cool.
Mhm.
I remember it was like the Ibanez K7 and Blade Gray or Fire's Peak Blue, and I was like, I want the Blade Gray one. They don't say the price in an advertisement like that.
All right.
Which I want to say back then, I think it was like a $1,400 or $1,500 guitar, which for a gift for a middle schooler of a single parent, like not going to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
But I didn't know the price, but I saw under the tree, like Christmas is coming around, and there's like a wrapped up guitar shaped case, and I was like, that's it. Like I'm getting
There
the
it is.
K7. This is so cool. And I'm like at school, like I think I'm getting a K7, guys. And they're like, whoa. And I open it up, and it's a doctor that my mom worked for. He had given me, like, I guess like he gave it to her to give to me, and it was this
Okay.
Excel acoustic, which was probably like, you would go to like the local mom and pop music store where they give music lessons, and it's like that's on the wall for like $80.
Yeah.
And I like all kids who are between the ages of like 12 and 14 or whatever, they're all pricks. So I was just like, thanks.
Yeah.
And it sat in the case for a couple months, and then I pulled it out, and it was like sitting on my lap, like not even like holding it upright, just like laying flat, and I'm just like playing with the strings, and I'm like, it kind of like immediately was making sense. I'm like, oh well, yeah, you just press down on the string and you get a different note, and I like taught myself how to play low rider, I think, like dun 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 dun. I was like, oh hey,
Okay.
I was like, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I just started playing it more and more from there, and eventually, like, obviously, I got better, but
Right.
not much better. But just it grabbed me really quickly once I started playing, and I got that. I had a friend who had this old Harmony Electric that was missing one of the tuners, so it only had 5 strings on it. I traded him like a BMX like bike frame for it. So I had a
Oh,
guitar with
damn.
5 strings that did the best I could with that. But I was like, oh, sick. I traded that to a guy in my neighborhood who had a Samick Strat copy that had all the strings on it, but the electronics didn't work at all. So like one barely functioning guitar for another barely functioning guitar. Then I bought my mom was like, all right, well, clearly you're serious about wanting to play guitar. So we went to Media Play. I bought a Epiphone Goth SG Special. It was all black SG.
Oh, okay.
Had that for a while. It had humbuckers. I'm like, this is sick.
Does it have like the red inlays on the neck of it?
No,
Is that?
those are the more expensive ones. This was like maybe $90. It was
Oh, okay. Okay.
the whole thing. It was just all black.
Okay.
But of course, trying to emulate CKY, did a guitar spin in my living room when obviously my mom wasn't home, and didn't know that strap locks even existed. So that thing went flying.
Oh
The
no!
neck shattered into like a million pieces, and then I tried to say that I
Oh
got
my
tripped by the
god!
cat when I was walking down the steps, and then I dropped the guitar because I was hoping I'd get some sympathy, like this was an accident, and no.
Oh
So,
man, that
but
sucks.
that was one of the best things that could have happened to me because then I had these working electronics, and my mom's boyfriend was like an electrician, so he's like, all right, well, we can maybe make this stuff work in that other guitar that doesn't work electronically. So we like Frankenstein this thing together, and that was like my start into like just modifying guitars and working on guitars, which something I
Oh,
still do
okay,
still do to this day. So
sure.
I think if I would have had stuff that always just worked right, I would have never gotten into it.
Yeah, and
So
I think it builds that, that much more of an appreciation, kind of like with the CDs type thing, where it's like you only have a couple of bucks and it's like I can't go to the store and buy absolutely everything, and somebody
right.
looks at a guitar and it's like, oh, that's what you got. It's like, hey man, you don't know what I had to do to get this thing.
Oh yeah.
I love and appreciate, and I mean, bless your mom too for you wanting the guitar and being a single parent and
Yeah,
trying
she
to like
she made it she made it
looking
happen.
back, those are yeah, those are awesome things. Even though at the time, I'm sure even myself with certain things, I'm like, oh, it's not what I was looking for.
Oh
It's like,
yeah.
fuck, man.
At the time, like like I said, all kids are pricks, so you're just like, but my mom was. Most people I knew so many people that were like good at guitar,
Mm.
but like, oh well, yeah, we can't play at my house or whatever. Like we always practiced in my mom's basement. Um, I could play, I played drums first. That's what I started on. So like I had drums, I had everything down there. I was always doing whatever. We would have shows in my mom's basement like every once in a while. It was always there was never like a you no, you can't do this. There was one time I got busted skipping school in high school, and we had like my band had a show that weekend, and instead of like my mom being like, "Well, you're not playing any shows anymore," because they called her like he's not here.
Oh.
She was like, "All right, well, you're gonna clean your room when you get home," and I was like, "That's it." But
You're
I
like,
think she
oh,
knew like she was like, "Oh, he actually gives a shit about something, so I'm not gonna like take that away."
okay. All right. Yeah, I can appreciate that. Yeah. Oh, so you mentioned in this band, was that the first band that you had ever had as far as, once picking up guitar and everything? Was like that in high
So
school?
yeah, so me and who our current tour manager, best from like freshman year on, and we would jam together. And he played bass. I played I would play drums, and because up until like I think sophomore year, I wanted to focus on drums. I was like, I just kind of played guitar, and I was like, this is what I'm better at because I could,
Mm-hmm.
I was in band and stuff, so I could read music
Mm-hmm.
for drums. And I would always try to jam, and it was just we could never find like a guitar player, which is weird. Usually, that's like the
Yeah, that's
easiest
so
thing to
weird.
find.
It's like, yeah.
But so we'd play all the time, and then some of my friends had a band that was called CNI, codename Indestructible, and then they became the Descents. They were just like a punk band, and half the band quit, and they were going to start another band. And so I was like, oh, their drummer quit, so I'm going to join. I went and jammed with them once, and I'm like, the vibe was wrong. It didn't feel. I was like, this isn't going to. Nobody wants to actually do this. Like, I
Okay.
want to play shows and stuff. So that didn't work. And then those guys that left, they needed a bass player, and I was like, well, I play guitar. I'm sure I could play bass. So got a bass, and I was playing with them for a little while. And you know, the guitar player, we were having problems with him, and the final straw was one show he didn't load his amp into our drummer's truck. Keep in mind his amp was a 30-watt crate combo that weighed maybe 10 pounds, and we were like, that's it, we're done with him. So he was our guitar player and
Oh my
singer. So we
God.
fired him, hired a singer who was DJ Cosgrove in the chat. Um,
Okay. All right.
and we were a band called 1931. I played guitar. Our tour manager, Acacia Strain's tour manager, played bass.
This is
Um,
Chris. Was that his name or?
no, Ollie.
Oh yeah,
Um,
okay, Ali.
just
Okay.
his name's Kevin, but we already have Kevin playing drums, so
Right, right. That's not gonna
uh,
work.
yeah. Kevin Tolliver, Oliver Tolliver, Ollie. That's how we achieved that name.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, like that we did that for a number of years, and just as things go, when you're like late high school, early college years, if you're trying to make a band successful, you'll have people that like they want to focus on their careers, they want to go to college, do all that stuff. So it's
Mhm.
hard to keep a stable lineup, and we didn't. We had a lot of member changes because me and Ollie were pretty much the only constants. Like we wanted to keep doing it, and I think the last time, like there was a point we did a tour very early 2009, and that was like the end for us as we did it, and then at the end of the tour, like we tried to say, all right, let's do a 2 month long tour as a band, booking this ourselves, and it was okay, but it cost. We lost a ton of money. Our Ollie was like, I'm kind of done after this, and I was like, well, I don't want to do this without him, so
Oh, right.
I kind of
Was
hung
that
it
your
up.
first experience touring then?
No, we
Or
toured a bunch before then, like when we could, but they were usually a few weeks long,
oh, okay.
um, which is more manageable when you're a small band.
Hmm.
Our thinking was like, let's just go for it, and we'll tour in the winter time because not as many bands are touring, so we won't have as much competition with shows. Some of the shows were really good. Some of the shows were fucking horrible.
And the roads, I
Um,
can imagine for some of the
oh
spots.
yeah, and Ollie was the only one that drove because it was his van, and like he didn't trust anybody else
Oh,
to drive it, and
okay.
yeah, so like that just kind of fell apart, and then I was sitting at home for maybe a month or two, and Rose Funeral, who I had filled in for, needed a guitar player, and I was like, I know these guys, sure, and I did that. That lasted a few months, and I'm just like, they were not good people. They were not, I'm
Mm,
not even going to go into it, but just
sure.
not a good group, and I couldn't
Okay.
do it, so I quit, and then home for a few more months, and I saw Oceano had lost their guitar player, and I was like, oh, I'd played some weekend shows with them, like sent him a MySpace message, and I guess like as I sent it, Adam, who sings for Oceano, he was going in to like turn off messages because he's like, oh, we're about to get flooded, and he just happened to see my message, and he was like, oh yeah, like hey, I remember you, man. And so we started talking. I sent a couple videos, and then I was in the band for like 3 years.
Oh shit. Okay. That was the
So
first
kind
time
of
I
just
actually saw you was with Oceano.
yeah, I mean that was all very much luck. Like
Huh.
if I
Wow.
would have waited a couple more minutes, he would have shut off messages, and I would have been like, eh.
Damn, damn, that's wild. That's so. With as far as with traveling and different things, what goes into your, if there is any sort of pre-show ritual, from maybe early on to those first, couple of shows to even more recent, and how has that changed as far as getting comfortable to go out and play?
Um, I don't know. Like there's because I feel like I've been doing it for so long. Like even like as a teenager, that there's not much like every show is different. There's some shows where I'm like I'll stretch and make sure I'm ready, and there's other shows where I'm like, oh shit, we got to go play.
Hmm.
Like um, it's just weird because like the adrenaline, any of that stuff, it doesn't hit me until like we're like getting ready to play, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like I usually
Okay.
try like when we're going on stage, like I'm more of a subconscious thing. I usually try to just like keep looking at like my amp, all that stuff. Like I don't want to be like facing everyone. It's kind of awkward. Like everyone's just standing there waiting for you to start, and you're like, because we don't have techs and stuff like that, just because it's more money than we'd
Hmm.
want to spend. I like
Yep.
also like with how long I've been working like, on guitars and like the people I've ended up learning from. I wouldn't trust anybody else to like accurately set up my guitar when it needs done. So I'm just like, eh. Um, so I'll just kind of like look at myself. Then I turn around like when we're about to play, and it's like, here's all these people, and I'm like, okay, fuck yeah. But there was a period of time where I did used to throw up before every show. Um,
Damn.
I so every time, pretty much every time, the entire time I've been touring, if we tour in the spring or fall, like right as it's starting to get cold, or right as it's starting to get warm, you go through several climates where it's like hot, cold, and I'll end up getting sick, and then I'll get this like upper respiratory infection, and I'll get a cough that just hangs around until I like have to go to a doctor and get like, they usually put me on prednisone, some steroid to like deal with the throat inflammation to make me stop coughing, but the cough would make me throw up. And usually playing shows, you'd be going inside outside where it's like really hot in the venue, cold outside, and like I would start coughing more because of that, and it would like trigger my gag reflex, and I would like end up throwing up like usually before we played. And my just subconsciously, I like my body started to do this thing where even when I wasn't sick for like a couple years, like we'd go to play and I'm like, it would just like I would get like the your mouth starts to water and you're like, all right, I'm gonna throw up, I guess. I remember one time we were setting up our rig in Emo's in Austin, Texas, which was like a indoor / outdoor venue back in the day.
Okay.
Playing with Oceano, and I had like, this is back when I was still using like real amps, so we had like a big I had a huge case for like my amp and like all this rack stuff, and I'm like behind it kneeling down like plugging everything in, and Thaddeus, our old merch guy, tour manager, he's up there and he's like, "You okay?" He's like, "You don't look so great." And I just look at him and go, "What?" And just like puke on the floor and I'm like, good now.
Oh my God. I mean,
what?
And just to clear too, I laugh because being there, and also, hearing how common it is, from these interviews and different things, and listening to interviews and hearing different people, I'm like, damn, this is more of a thing than I ever even realized. Yeah. So
eventually it stopped, and I think part of it was like there was a period where Oceano had broken up for like 9 months, and I think in that amount of time, like I got enough of a break from playing shows to where like my body was like, you don't need to do this anymore, and we were all good.
Just tricked it right out of it. Okay, damn. So as far as from Oceano and then the transition into the Acacia Strain and kind of digging into some of this, what was the initial material that you ended up bringing to the table for the band? Because I know you had Above and Below, the initial EP. And then Coma Witch. Was the EP the first stuff that you'd written with the band?
Yeah, with the guys, yeah. So that was, me and Richie were in the band, and basically I wrote Above, he wrote Below.
Okay.
The end of Above, the da, 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 that was something I wrote when I first got an 8-string, just like to test out the 8-string. I was like, this is cool. Everything else from that was just like jamming, and we wrote it. But I had that, and then a lot of the stuff from Coma Witch, there's a lot of it that was stuff that I had been writing for Oceano because I was going to help them write the record after Contagion, because I got the offer for Acacia Strain. I'm like thinking about like my own future and everything. I'm like, I kind of have to do that, and I felt at the time like the Oceano ship was kind of sinking, which I thankfully for them, the stuff they're doing now is awesome. But there was a period, like the record Incisions they did, I'm not a fan of it. And I've told them this because we were writing demos. They had the song Slow Murder. I did not like the song, but they wrote that like without me, and I'm like, I don't even care that I wasn't on the song. I was just like, this sounds like you're going more towards like the kind of nu metal thing to be safe, and I don't think that's a good idea for you guys. But I was like, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to not do this first tour so I can write with you guys, because like I don't want to leave you hanging. So I wrote a bunch of material, and then they hired Casper, who was playing guitar for him for a while, and he's a great guy. I like him. We're friends. But I was just kind of like, I had all this material that just now wasn't going to get used. I'm like, okay. And there were bits and pieces that made it onto Coma Witch, and a lot of it got changed. One of my AirPods died, but I'm still good. A lot of it, got changed around. Parts got slowed down. Like there was this, I want to say maybe it's Graveyard Shift. There's a like the kind of chorus part that's like like just big chords and like kind of a slam part. That was written as like a really fast like single note death metal part. That was like it was like because I was trying to write like faster death metal stuff for Oceano, so a lot of it like
Okay.
let's slow this down. Let's make this like heavy.
Great choice. That part is so sick. Yeah, I still, I mean, it's one of my favorite albums. So that's awesome.
Yeah, but I was just going through. I had like a ton of just demos recorded, so it was like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. What can we do with that?
mm, dang, that's sweet. Does anything else come to mind as far as earlier stuff that you had brought for that album?
Um, Not off the top of my head. There's definitely some stuff. Then there's also in Nail Gun. There's the part that it's like a 9/8 riff. That was a 1931 riff that we just never used. Like,
Oh, really?
my old
Okay,
drummer and I would jam that
way
all the
back.
time, but we never like used it because nobody else could play it because it was just weird to throw people off. So
Mm.
we were like, it never got put in a song. I was like, fuck it, I'm using it. I wrote it.
Damn,
Um,
that's sick. So, as far as what was there like kind of a moment where you had to step back and like look at the position that you were in because it was it's 10 years ago. You're doing a cover of the Impaler, and you post something, and then all of a sudden you're like in the band and like talking to Tom. He's like,
yeah,
holy shit, this is one of my favorite bands ever. And now I'm standing here playing with the guys. Like, that's pretty
yeah.
wild.
So that was a tryout video. I'm playing it very wrong because I'm on a 7 string that was tuned to like drop A, tuned all the way down to F, and the
Uh
strings were really slinky. Um, but yeah, that was during the period where Oceano had broken up because Adam decided he was quitting, and he's like, just get a new singer, and we're like, absolutely not. Um,
huh.
so we weren't doing anything, and like I was good friends with Tony, who used to play guitar in Acacia Strain,
Uh-huh.
and him and Tim, who were like the other fill-in, he's the other fill-in. They're like, oh yeah, Tim's gonna quit, and he's like, I don't really want to do this anymore. So I'm like making videos, like, all right, well, if this opportunity comes up, I want to do it. And Tim
Sick.
quit, but then they're like, we just want to do one guitar for now. I was like, okay, and but I just like they knew that I'd always kind of like it was there, it was kind of on the table, and then not much longer goes by. Like I think it was after the van flip. That's when everyone kind of realized like
Mm.
we need somebody like 'cause Tony didn't want to do it anymore, and it's like we need somebody who's going to want to be in the band because it's not you don't want we don't want fill-ins forever.
Right.
And I got the offer, and I also was like I was like I want to do this, but I want to be in the band. I don't want to be a fill-in guitarist. I also know how those guys are treated by the old guitar player, and I'm like I was not okay with that. So I'm like stuff like they'd be like, hey, can you show us how to play this song that we want to play? And he's like, no. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to deal with that. So like, I got to, if I'm coming in,
Shit.
I'm not dealing with that.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like, I would say, I guess a ballsy move to be like, hey, I'm having all these demands to come into a band, but it worked. So here I am.
Yeah, yeah, thankfully. I mean, sometimes those things are, it's, something that's necessary just to be kind of upfront as opposed to kind of beating around the bush and with time things, changing too. So, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, obviously it worked out. So, yeah,
Yeah. And
that's
that's like,
awesome.
that's to say there's nothing against anybody that was in the band. Like DL's doing great stuff now with Bad Wolves. And like we've talked before, like he's had good things to say about the stuff we're doing. It's like, hey, that's the direction the band needs to be moving in. Because I do think that there was at a certain point a bit of a disconnect, which that happens, I think, in any situation where you have here's all the guys in the band that are touring and doing all this stuff together all the time versus
Hmm.
like here's one guy who's just at home writing. Like they don't have the connection they did back in the day in
Yeah. Okay.
any band that kind of has that situation. So um, I think like what he wanted to do and what they wanted to do they're moving further and further apart. Um, so I like to think like me and Richie coming in kind of helped like glue the band back together, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah.
And then it gave him the opportunity where he produced some cool records, and now he's in Bad Wolves, like doing very well for himself. So happy for him.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, and things work out too. And I mean, I can say as far as, being a fan of the band since, I mean, at least Dead Walk era, that I can go back. Komowich coming out was like something that really reinvigorated my energy, for the band. And I've absolutely, loved the stuff ever since. And, Slow Decay comes out, and that's been, probably since Continent, my favorite album from the band. So it's like, you guys are
I appreciate that.
keeping it up.
Yeah, we always try to
sure.
try to do something different, and then because there'll always be people that be like, I missed the Dead Walk, and it's like, you go listen to it. It still exists. You can listen to it. If we could write something that sounds exactly like it, might sound exactly the same. It might sound, exactly like something that came out just at that point in time. But the difference is you're not going to be 15 years old, like on your way to school, listening to that on the bus and like having that connection. So
totally.
whenever someone's like, I miss that sound, it's like, okay, well, you can go back and listen to it because we're not going to be able to recreate that feeling no matter how hard we try. So don't ever try to do that. If you're in a band, if you have something that people like, don't try to recreate it. Just keep moving forward.
Totally. I mean, it's good advice, and something that I appreciate too, even some of the songs that don't, that aren't like singles, or like Model Citizen, for instance, the like midsection riff of that track. I don't think I've ever seen you guys play it, but god damn. I mean, there's like certain moments in the band, even, like where people kind of focus on some of the older stuff, and it's like, man, have you listened to some of these tracks? Or having on my man Rob Fugio, as far as the guest spot, like some of the guest spots, or all the guest spots that you guys have still been doing are fucking ill. So I mean, I appreciate the newer stuff, honestly, as much, if not more, than the times that I had with Dead Walk and Continent and everything. I still love those too, but this newer stuff is making it happen. And as far as with the Observer, so that was kind of something as well that reinvigorated a whole different energy. What was the initial conversation as far as bringing that about, and ultimately having a whole disc to itself?
Yeah, so we first off, Rise Records, they let us do whatever we want. Vincent had the idea, let's do like a double record where we have like a Doom CD and then like a Acacia Strain CD record, whatever you want to call it, and there's just never been any pushback from them. They let us do anything we want, which is just the greatest feeling. I've been on labels before where you have any idea that isn't like the standard, like this is what bands do, and they're just like, no, we're not going to do that. That's going to cost too much. Rise doesn't care. They support you, whatever you want to do. It's like, yeah, do it. So first off, that they're a big part of letting that happen. Vincent and I, before I was in the band, we were going to start a doom band called Stab, and
whoa,
there's a whole section of Observer that was just the song that we were working on. And once I joined Acacia Strain, it's kind of like, well, let's just let this happen. Like, we'll just kind of like start filtering some of these elements in. Because there's parts like the end of Cauterizer kind of thing, but there's also like some chords going on. It's kind of doomy. And then you've got Observer, of course, which is just, it's only like 3 or 4 different parts, but they get played for a long time, and which is kind of like, it's a cool experiment, just fun to do. I don't know, not really that fun, actually. It was during the winter where there was that really bad polar vortex. So when I drove out to write, driving through upstate New York, or driving near Buffalo with wind chill, it was like -40. It was ridiculous. And we're writing in Vincent's garage, so we could go out there for like 15 minutes at a time and like work on something. But Observer, I was in his garage and I had a space heater. I was just by myself, just out there like working on these riffs, and it was literally painful to write because of how cold it was.
Oh my God.
And then Richie, there's like the big clean section in the middle, and like that was Richie, which I think he kicked ass on that part. Credit where credit is due. Sorry about that.
Okay.
random spam callers that time of day.
No, I think it's synced right back up. It's all good.
But yeah, Komowich and Observer, like it was definitely a process.
Okay, all right. And that was something too that Richie ended up writing some of it as well. Then, right?
Yeah, he's mainly like the clean part on Observer, and then there were a few songs like I want to say we like kind of 50-50 the record.
Okay. Okay. So with it comes in waves, and the transition into what was going next after Grave Bloom. What was it? It comes in waves. Was that first up, or did you start writing stuff for Slow Decay?
Um, it Comes in Waves happened first, and you know, again, like I'm not big on like taking credit for other people's work. I barely wrote anything on It Comes in Waves. Like there was, I think it's Giving, maybe. I don't. The
Mm.
whole thing is one song, so the sections I always confuse what names go where. But the parts is like ba-da, ba-da-ga, like that thing.
Oh yeah.
Like I
Okay.
wrote that whole section, but the rest of it, like Tom and Griffin had a ton of parts, and Griffin was like the mastermind behind like piecing everything together to be cohesive. I think I kind of came in most heavily um, as we're piecing it together, like little elements like early in the thing, you'll hear like the no, 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 like the kind of repeats through parts. Like that
Hmm.
was my idea to kind of glue things together and kind of have motifs that like, okay, you heard this earlier and it fits there and it fits here, so it kind of ties these together. Um, I feel like that stuff like that was more of my contributions on that because it was just like if something's good, like I don't want to come in like there's some people that are like, well, I didn't write any of this, and I'm like, if it's good, like I don't want to fuck with it. I
Yeah.
don't want to be
Sure.
like, well, I don't have that many riffs on this, but it's
Hmm.
good, so I'm like yeah, let's put this together.
Do it. Yeah.
Um, so I did. My main contribution, I think, is like I did all of the backing layers on that are me of vocals um, throughout the whole thing. Um, because we recorded everything at like Airbnbs, all the guitars and stuff. Whenever we'd have days off on tour, it was just like tracking DIs into the Kemper,
Hmm.
um, and getting everything down. We recorded drums at Griffin's studio, but beyond that, like Vincent went to his friend's house and recorded vocals.
Yeah.
And I remember it being like it's different when you're working with a producer who's like, yeah, like nope, do that again, or let's get these layers. There was just more that was needed, and
Okay.
I was gonna do some, but then I was just like, I'm pretty sure like Tom gave me notes on like here's what I want, and I was like, I'm just gonna record like every part. You're gonna get high, low, mid vocals, all this stuff, and I'm like that way you just have everything and you can use whatever you want. Um, because like again, I'm not working with a producer to be like oh we only need it right here. So I was just like
Hmm.
I'm just gonna do everything and sent that off. Obviously, most of what you're hearing is still Vincent. He kicked ass on that. Um, but that then there's some of like the pitched screaming stuff. Like there were different ideas I brought in, like harmonies and stuff like that you kind of hear.
Who's doing the initial, like the very first vocals that are? I think they're saying, I never thought I would see you again."
That is Vincent's ex girlfriend.
Oh, weird. Okay. Yeah. I guess I was thinking it was. Is it credited on the album?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh
I don't
shit.
have one.
Okay.
I don't have a copy.
Oh.
Well,
Okay.
I think Vincent has copies for everybody, but
Oh,
you
okay.
know I just never got them because usually it would be like I'd grab that and bring it home from tour or something. And I think
Yeah.
I was planning to do the same on this one, but then that whole shit happened and we all had to leave.
Oh shit. Okay. All right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so
That.
I never got a copy and like spent time looking through. So it might be.
Oh, okay.
I think
Okay.
it is.
I'll have
I
to
think
look
she's
at it
president.
again. Okay, got ya. Yeah, that was one of the things, when for anyone who got to see you guys live, just as far as all of the things, because you obviously have like kind of like a backing track playing some of like the score-esque, sounding parts of the album, but as far as the pretty stuff that you guys were playing and the clean stuff, and then going into it was awesome. Even like the one moments that Kevin, does like the bells, of all the symbols there and is kind of playing. Like it was sweet to see all the stuff that all the details that you guys went into, playing and actually playing as much it seemed like as you possibly could in a live setting.
Yeah, yeah. We played as much of it as we could. There's obviously like the electronic elements and stuff. Like you can't play those.
Right.
So those tracks are there. There's a couple things where it's like a backing layer to like a lead or something, or just like atmosphere stuff that might be there. But
Mm.
everything else, like we played it all. Like um, it was funny because there was somebody, a photographer who came on the tour for a couple days, who I don't think he'd really toured before because he was just kind of like he was very much in the way several times, and which is the number one thing. Like everyone's got to learn, but like
Yeah.
Gabe, who was on most of the tour, Gabe the Pigeon, great photographer. You never know where he's at on stage. He's never in the way. He makes himself like non-existent, but
Hmm.
gets great shots. Anyways, this kid was like, he's like, yeah, so you guys, he thought we weren't playing. He thought everything was just backtracking. We're like, what are you talking about? You can hear our tabs. Like we're playing guitar. You can hear when I fuck up. Like,
Oh, wow. Yeah,
because that's the thing is
I
like
definitely
you
didn't
don't want
think
to.
that.
Yeah, you don't want to go see a band like just play along, like mime to a recording. That's not
Hmm.
fun.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, there's
no.
bands that do that, but we are not one of them.
Yeah. No, I mean it was certainly like there was certainly the live sound where you could tell. I mean, there wasn't any point where I
Yeah,
thought that
it's
it was something playing along with a track, other
yeah,
than,
Tom.
something playing in the back and, little moments where maybe you were playing cleans over something else playing, but yeah, I didn't think
Yeah, and
that.
yeah, because Tom put a lot of work into like getting everything like first making putting all the tracks together, but then also, um, so we've got two different computers running like we've got like the session going in Logic, and we've got a switcher. Like if one of them if it crashes for some reason, it automatically switches over to the other computer like seamlessly because we've seen too
Oh,
many bands
damn,
where
really?
yeah, we've seen too many bands where the shit goes down, and I guess like that's kind of like the Meshuggah thing. They've got the two computers, and then um, we've got like our Kempers. They're hooked up to the computer, so the track automatically switches our patches. So like I don't have to do like the tap dance on a pedal board, like getting everything to sound right. It just automatically switches to what I need, which is
Oh
great.
shit. Wow. Okay.
And then I guess this is what Tom described as the Meshuggah thing that they do when like Frederick goes to do a lead. Whenever one of us, me or Tom, does a lead, the other guitar player's rhythm channel, that patch will switch to be stereo, so it's still coming out like both sides, like very full. So it sounds like gives you almost the illusion of like there still being two rhythm guitars going, but it's just one guy
Mm.
playing both on both sides. Um,
Oh, wow. No shit.
but it's all like him. If we were to do all this stuff like just on the pedal board, you'd have to be hitting that thing like every time a riff changes, you're like switching to something else,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
nobody wants to do. So having it switch automatically, like we're able to do a lot more the kind of intricate sounding stuff.
That's the one thing I guess now thinking is I've heard Tom mention before. Maybe it's in the Kemper. I play drums, so I mean all of this shit kind of blends as far as I try my best to keep up. But even the guitarists in my band are talking different things. I'm like I don't know, man. It sounds great,
Yeah,
but Tom was mentioning something about the wah effect and that being something that was automatically like something that is in the pedal, and I'd never thought of it before. But like seeing you guys live a couple of times, I'm like, oh shit, yeah, he's not playing a wah pedal at all.
yeah,
It's
because
something
you can
that's
set up like auto wah basically, especially since we're playing with a click. We know we're on the same tempo every night, so you can have it like kind of moving at a certain rate that'll
mm,
I don't have to mess with that. I have this company called Mission makes like a foot controller for the Kemper, And I was going
Okay.
to bring that, but Tom was like, let's just auto watt, because I'm like, I don't want to have, like, just because I'm also doing a lot of vocals for It Comes in Waves, I'm like, I need to be able to, because I'm kind of dumb as a guitar player, so I'm like, I don't want to be like, oh, I have to do this stupid shit while also trying to like sing. So it was like, just program it, just do that, and that way I don't have to worry about like moving my foot doing this while also playing guitar while also singing or something.
That's fun. And it's one of those things too where, like people always kind of mention with drums, it's like, man, you have to use all four of your limbs, and how do you do that? And it's like, well, I mean, it's along, the lines of, being a guitar player and having to switch pedals and singing on top of it, too. Like there's that's one thing where even messing around with the minimal, guitar playing that I know, like singing
Right.
along with it, it's like, it just doesn't connect. Like I just don't understand it.
I always give Kevin shit. Where I'm like, you have the easiest job. You get to sit down the whole time. Like, just he's not doing anything. He's just pouring sweat. Like, I'm like, lazy.
Oh damn! I know. Just back there blowing out those snot wads, and sweating his ass off.
Oh yeah, all of us. If you see me turn around when we're playing, I'm usually like blowing one out, just like, because otherwise it starts just running down just from like the heat, like doing all this, like
right.
it jars a bunch of stuff loose from your head, so it's pour out your nose now.
Yeah. Good. Where does the strap, the spike strap, where did that bad boy come into play? Tough as hell.
After I switched over to Balaguer and I was going to be playing like the Tartarus shape, which is their kind of like big pointy guy, I'd ordered just a basic leather strap from D'Addario. We worked with D'Addario for years for like strings, all kinds of accessories. They rule. And I just ordered a bunch of spikes and like a leather punch from Amazon.
Oh,
and
shit.
just put it together. Like I was like, let's make something really stupid. So the whole thing was like, this is supposed to look stupid. Like it's not supposed to be like, look how fucking tough I am. Like it's just like it was meant to be obnoxious, like and kind of funny. Because I'm wearing the spike strap, a fucking Raiders jersey, camo pants, and white Nike Monarch dad shoes. Like the least serious person I've ever seen on stage.
Oh man!
But punching those holes, I bought the cheapest leather punch they had on Amazon, so of course it was like falling apart like a quarter of the way through, and so I'm like sitting there like squeezing this thing for dear life trying to punch through the leather, and it was like I could it took several days because I could do like I could punch for like 15 minutes before my hand was just throbbing. And I could feel bruised for like a day. I'm like, oh god, but I finished it. But people ask a lot. It's like, oh, is that a steel weather strap? Which my friend Kyle, who plays guitar for Vitriol, he has a company called Steel Weather, so he's gonna make me a strap. It's much higher quality, much higher quality than mine. So then when people ask like, oh, is that Steel Weather? I'd be like, yes. Go buy one, because now I'm like, it's not. I made it myself, but Kyle makes much better ones. Like, go check out his company.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, supporting friends and different things like that. So that's always
he makes some
cool.
really cool shit. Mine is like just slapped together, and I'm like, a spike will fall off, and I'm just like, fuck it, don't care.
Start looking like a constellation or some sort. You have just little spots where it's like, what the hell is that supposed to make up?
Because a lot of the small ones, like there was barely like the screw space through the strap. There was barely enough room to like get it screwed on.
Oh god!
So I like glued most of them on, so they fall off sometimes.
You like ordered 75, and by the time you're at 20, you're like, oh, this is good enough. Yeah. I'm not doing this anymore.
Steve just joined. Steve did the mix on It Comes in Waves.
It Comes away. Oh, okay, nice. Yeah, that's. I mean, we're had some time with that, talking with that live and everything too here. With Slow Decay, moving on, to that as far as with it being released in the separate EPs. I kind of wanted to just dig into maybe small or first memories or things as far as writing or recording. Starting off with so D comes out first, and Feed a Pigeon, Breed a Rat, and Seeing God. What comes to mind with those tracks?
God, it's so weird, like thinking about stuff like that from before pandemic, because that this whole time off has felt like 10 years.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so when we were recording everything, we recorded it all together. We wrote together. We were in Griffin's studio. So we had there's like the front little lounge room. There's the main control room, and then there's the drum room. Tom was in the front room, like with his MacBook and his Kemper and all this stuff, writing ideas. I was in the middle room with Randy, who produced the record, writing with him with the Kemper in there and like tracking ideas. Griffin was in the drum room with his iMac, with his Kemper, also writing. Because if you don't know, Griffin is also a guitar player. Like he used to play guitar in Two Fear to Die, so he's got a lot of good riffs. So we were kind of doing that, and we were just bouncing back and forth to each other, like, oh yeah, that's sick. Like Griffin wrote "Seeing God," like he had the first riff, the dad and dad and dad and dad and dad, like
Oh,
that whole thing.
okay. Yeah.
And but he didn't know where to go with it. And Tom was like, "Oh, try this." So like they put together this really sick song. So it was kind of written like that. I was working with Randy because like Tom used to work with Will Putney. Like he's produced a bunch of records. Griffin owns a studio, produces a bunch of stuff. Like he produced the new Then Dead record. And he's done a lot of other stuff.
Oh, damn.
But I'm not a producer. I'm just a guy who plays guitar, who kind of knows how to use a computer at this point. But so I was working with Randy to like get my ideas down quickly. I had the riffs, but just not the computer skills to get everything down as easily. Okay. But yeah, a lot of it was written like that. Were just ideas bouncing around and saying like, oh, try this kind of lead thing here, or like, oh, maybe a lot of stuff are like, oh, we need something here, and I'm like, this slam part will fit. So
Okay.
Yeah, everyone's writing is all over everyone else's songs. I think really like, I think I Breathe in the Smoke, that song, I think that was the only one that was like 100% me. That and maybe like the last two tracks, like Earth Will Become Death and Birds of Paradise, Birds of Prey. I'm bad with song names, especially if we haven't played them live and I have to look at the set list every night and go, oh yeah, that's this.
Yeah.
Because when we're writing songs, they all have fucking working titles, like, whatever stupid shit you name a song. Like, I've got a list now of like, I've got like 18 different song demos, and they're all named something like, oh, what flavor Bang was I drinking that day? Like, all right, this one's Cherry Blade Lemonade. This one's Nalgene bottle full of piss. It's like all just whatever, just stuff. You're like, okay, that works. So
that's funny.
Whenever someone's like, "Oh, this song," I'm like, "What song is that?" I don't know. Unless we played it live, usually I'm like, I don't know what song that is.
Yeah, I mean, and it's weird too, like talking to, even like local friends that, have like released an album in 2020, and it's like, man, you guys been writing on stuff, and then I stop myself mid question because I'm like, you just released an album last year, like, you just haven't been able to play the stuff live, or you haven't been able to experience, working, out with it.
Yeah, it's weird. Like for me with writing, I've changed a lot with how I write over the last this big break, basically, especially with streaming. Like I got to a point where I was just I would write a song on stream every day.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily for us, but a lot of it was like, there was a period where I was doing like, okay, well, I'm going to write a song as if it was written by this band, like, and thinking about how they would write and just doing things like that. They're essentially writing exercises that get me better at like thinking a certain way, and avoiding writer's block. So then I got to a point where shortly before we kind of left, like I was sending like an Acacia Strain song idea like every day of the week. Like just, all right, here's what I wrote today.
Damn.
Because I'm like, if I would rather write a whole bunch and get every idea that comes in down, because sometimes you'll have something where you're like, this is stupid, and someone else in the band hears it, goes, dude, that's kind of stupid, but if you change it this way, it would be really cool.
Yeah, totally.
And I'd rather not like miss out on those ideas by saying like, that sucks, and just scrapping it. So I record everything.
Sweet. Yeah, that I mean, that rules, and it is something too where I think more times than not, it is something where initially you hear it and it doesn't, like that doesn't necessarily pan out, and then somebody else kind of maybe even it does exactly what you do and just plays it lower. Sorry, this paused on me for some reason.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Or just plays it in a different octave, or higher or lower, and oh shit, that is very cool,
Yeah,
So
that's
keeping the
and
stuff.
that's one of the things that's I think is important about working with like a good producer, somebody who understands your band and understands what you're going for, because then they act as, for us, like working with Randy LaBeouf, he is like the sixth member when it comes to us writing, because he can tell you like, no, that sucks, but try it this way or do this, and you go, oh shit, okay, that actually works better. Or he'll help you bring out the ideas that you maybe weren't confident enough to bring out, or like you didn't, your brain wasn't working that way, but he might switch your thinking a little bit and make you go, okay, get you going down that path to where you end up writing something really cool. Like for example, I Breathe in the Smoke. We didn't know what to do for the beginning of that song, because like I'd just written the like that, the kind of chordy thing. We're like, we need something, and he grabbed a bass and was like, let's do something with bass. And I'm like, first I'm like, what? Like I in my head I'm picturing like Seinfeld, like this bass intro. But then he started playing this like kind of power chord thing on bass, and he wrote the intro to that. And then I'm like, okay, well he's like, we need some kind of moody guitar shit over it. And I start like messing around with bends, and he's sitting there and like while I'm experimenting, and like you'll hit the right note, and he's like, oh yeah, that. And it's just cool having that like positive reinforcement of like, yeah, there it is. And then
that rules.
You're experimenting, and you kind of see his face, like you're like, nope, this isn't working. Like it fits, but it fits, but it could be cooler. So you're just moving around until you can find the right thing.
Okay. How did my man from was it Left Behind is the vocal guest on that track?
Yeah,
how did he come to? Is Zach? Okay, I'm sorry. How did he come to be featured on the track?
Left Behind is probably our best friends as a band.
Okay.
We one of the last tours not one of the last ones, one of the first tours we did together, we ended up starting a group chat that was like every member of the tour, like of every band, like it was us, I Am, and Left Behind. We had just a whole tour group chat.
Oh yeah, okay.
And now to this day, like we still have a group chat that is constantly going. That's like us and Left Behind.
Okay.
But and then for a good chunk of time, like, and unfortunately, Left Behind is just like not really active anymore. Like everyone's just kind of like working on like adult, career shit. But like I managed Left Behind. So it's kind of a no-brainer. Like, yeah, let's get Zach on this. Nobody sounds like him. Like,
right.
He's one of my favorite vocalists just because he is a psychopath. he sounds insane.
Yeah. Okay.
That dude is one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. Either he's got like the craziest stories. Like if you ever talk to him on here, like dude, there's one where like he pranked an Italian restaurant pretending to be some sales rep from a hot tub store, and he was saying like, yeah, we're gonna do a promo thing. We want to fill up a hot tub full of ravioli, so we need to place all this ravioli order, and then we talk about ravioli hot tub a lot.
Oh my god! Yeah, I'll have to
shit.
see about getting him on. What was it? Something that, I mean, as far as reaching out with him, was it something with the particular track that sounded like we need to have him on it, or were there other people in mind or was it a song that you planned on having a guest spot on? I should ask.
I think that we probably once the song was done, I think we were like, let's have somebody here. And it was like, who's going to fit? It was like, Zach. That's Zach's part. Usually it's like, we'll have some people in mind that we want to have somewhere on the record. And that just was like, Zach, though, was like, yeah, no-brainer. Let's get Zach.
Okay. Nice. That what ended up, as far as maybe not to say a favorite, but what was a couple of your favorite tracks that ended up coming out from the Slow Decay sessions?
Love Seeing God.
Oh, yeah,
I
that's sick.
I loved um, Crippling Poison. Very fun to play live.
Mm.
Um, Cross Gates, which was like the whole idea with Cross Gates was like, what would it sound like if 2019 Acacia Strain was to write like a car bomb type song, and that's what Cross Gates was just like, which is not the first track on the record, but we were like, let's write a fucking mosh intro,
Yeah, yeah,
but
okay.
as if us now we're writing it, not trying to like redo something we had already done.
Hmm.
Um, but it's cool, and then it works as like when we did the tour, like you saw in at the Sanctuary, we play It Comes in Waves, and then we go into the Slow Decay stuff, and we pop it off with Cross Gates,
Crossgates, yeah.
and it's just like just a really quick ass beater.
Yeah. And playing the Lucid Dream, that was a track where I was like, oh,
That
fuck,
was cool.
thank God that you guys played that for sure. The only other one, I mean, whenever you guys get back on the road and, start doing stuff again, I'm hoping within one of the next couple of times coming through is Earth Will Become Death. That song, probably out of all of your guys' albums, is one of my favorite tracks ever. And I fucking love that song. That's for sure one of the awesome ones. I don't know if there's, a whole lot that went into as far as if it was a big collaboration, but a personal favorite of mine. That song was fucking sick.
Yeah, I remember because I mix up the last two tracks. I mix up. I believe Earth Will Become Death is the one that has the and like that.
Yep.
I
Yep.
remember working on that part with Randy, and it's like six open one, open six, like. But then he was like, try going to that five and like bend it, and it gives it this like almost crowbar kind of like cool
Yeah.
like movement to it.
Yeah.
That's a fun song for sure.
Yeah. So sick. Yeah, I appreciate that. And honestly, going through all this stuff and hearing some of the memories and some of what went into the live shows and everything, I appreciate. This is wrapping up on our time, and I appreciate all this stuff, man. You taking the time today. This is huge.
Hey,
I
no
thank
problem.
you very much.
You're welcome.
Uh,
Thank you for having me.
Last up here, as a finale, I wanted to toss something fun your way and go into a hypothetical situation as far as we touched on movie soundtracks. And if there was a horror movie, even a franchise that was coming out and they were doing tracked or a
Oh,
Spawn
I
type
lost you
soundtrack
for a
or
second.
even okay, okay. If they're doing like a Judgment Night or a Spawn type soundtrack, and they were going to have you guys feature a song, and you're going to work with somebody outside of the metal scene, outside of the maybe even hip hop or R&B, who would be an artist that you guys would have featured on a song, and maybe even what franchise would you want it to be for? Halloween, Friday the 13th, Scream. I know you guys watch that movie a ton.
Yeah. Let me, because like my gut wants to say Friday the 13th, but I also like I don't want to taint that series any more than it's already been like kind of like.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking like what because like you think about the Freddy versus Jason soundtrack. Um, I don't remember like them actually playing really any of the songs during the movie. I think it was just like here, this accompanies the movie like
I
separately.
think I think they had a Chimera song when they were
May,
fighting.
okay, and maybe I don't remember
Mm-hmm.
that well. All I
Mm-hmm.
know is Jamie Josta bought like the remaining stock of all the CDs, so he has them for like conventions and stuff. He'll like go and like sell all these signed
Oh,
Josta
damn, really?
Freddy vs. Jason CDs. Um,
Bastard.
I, um, I think it would be cool to do if we had to if it was working with like somebody like in the hip hop world. I think it'd be cool to do something like with somebody from Wu Tang. Like it'd be cool to do something with like RZA. And I think that's part
Yes.
like me and Vincent. Like weirdly, both of our moms listened to Wu Tang when we were kind of growing up for a bit. So like
Okay.
that exposed us to it. So like I have a soft spot for them.
Okay.
Um, and I think that like that would be something that would be cool because it would kind of. I think it would. I think it could mesh well. Um,
Totally.
but for a movie,
Oh man. Yeah, that would be fucking
yeah,
sick.
that's
That'd be
tough.
awesome.
Like, yeah, Friday the 13th is just the easy one.
Okay.
But
That's
yeah,
still fair, you know.
maybe Jason takes Manhattan again. Jason takes Staten Island.
Okay, okay, nice, nice. That'd be. I mean, I love it. I hope that something comes of that, or at least the Acacia Strain in a Reza. That would be
It'd be
sick,
insane.
so sick. Look, man, this has been awesome. I know you have something else after this as well too, so I don't want to have you digging clear into that time. But
Yeah,
thank you
no
very
worries.
much.
Yeah,
This
thank
has
you for having
been
me.
this has been awesome, man, and I'll keep in touch, and maybe we'll have something. We'll dig into a movie or two, and do like a review or something like that too.
That
Talk
would
some
be
horror
sick.
movies.
I'd be real
Sweet,
into that.
awesome, awesome. All right, man. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Stay healthy and stay safe.
You too. See you later.
All right, take care.
He's a lo-fi horror guy. Yeah, he's kind of a guy, but he is so lo-fi, lo-fi, a horror guy. Yeah. Lo-fi horror guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.